Let's talk about trauma, my favorite topic. I just love doing trauma work because it is so very, very meaningful, and you can change a life so rapidly, so gently. We can change emotional memories, even though most textbooks published in therapy will assure you of the opposite, that it's simply encoded in your brain and you will never be able to shift that. With thought-field therapy, we see that we can keep the memory, but we can now think about the memory without the upset, just like in Kylie's case. She can now think about, I need to go to Vancouver, but I'm okay with that. You can think about chocolate, and you're okay with that. Any craving coming back? You're still okay? Very nice. Thank you for the feedback. We can remove, in other words, the negative charge while maintaining, or in some cases, reinstating rationality. Bottom line, we can stop the nightmares of trauma. We can change generational trauma. There's now research that shows that we don't just hand down our genes to our offspring, but also our traumatic experiences. And we often see entire populations kept in that horrible cycle of trauma, building upon trauma upon trauma. We can stop that so very gently. My philosophy is that if it bothers you, it is worth being treated. It doesn't matter how big it is. You know, I've had this one lady come to me. She was in her 70s. She came in from way out of town. She traveled for many hours, and we had a monster session. We were together for like 3+ hours. We did a lot of work, 16 issues. And she said to me, you know, I'm really upset. She was in tears. She said, I'm so upset because when I was 7 years old, my mom and dad told me that there was no such thing as Santa Claus. And to this day, you know, 70 years later, she was in tears over that memory. We treated that, and she found peace. A few minutes later, she said, oh yeah, my grandpa also sexually abused me. She was equally in tears, and we eliminated that. Size, the nature of the issue doesn't matter. If it bothers you, it's worth being treated. The age doesn't matter, whether it's happening right now or it happened 70 years ago. It doesn't matter. If it bothers you, it is worth being treated. Clarity of a memory does not matter. Whether you can just remember every detail of an event, or you just have sort of a vague feeling in the pit of in your stomach, that something might have happened, could have happened, and it just makes you feel kind of awful just thinking that something could have happened. Let's start there. How awful you feel suspecting that something could have happened to you. Boom, and we have a start. We start, it's the great, I call it the great undoing. We start undoing we start pulling on these threads wherever they're willing to go, and start eliminating these issues. Whether you feel it or not does not matter. I can even work with people who have so-called repressed memories. It's a horrible experience that runs their life, yet when they think about it, it just doesn't even faze them. They seem to be okay. I had this one young lady walk into my office with her iPod, and she said, look at this picture here on my iPod. This is the car wreck I was in. Yeah, and the driver, she was killed, and I was sitting next to her, and I saw her when she was lying there, and she went into the whole story. It was just like, you know, she was telling me a movie. It was something that happened to someone else. There was no emotional connection to it. We were still able to work with that and start undoing some of that, that stuff. Whether you can name it or not, it doesn't matter. I had another a business lady who was a business owner here in town. She plunked herself down in my chair and said, Francie, and she started crying. And she said, I've been like this for 3 weeks now. People come to my store and they request something and I just burst into tears. You know, how can you cry over whiteout? And we sat down and we just started tapping, and 10 minutes later, she too was able to calm down, relax, find her boundaries again, and go back into her heart space. If you know anyone, or you're yourself working at the front lines, and you're working with people who are suffering, compassion fatigue is not uncommon. The beauty about thought-field therapy is there is nothing more exciting than being successful at what you're doing. I call it my heroin. I love doing this because I get to look good, I feel good, I do the treatments with others, and I always feel great when I do that. I get sort of the benefits with it. And there's just simply nothing more exciting than being successful at what you're doing and being able to make a difference. And even when I hear the most horrific stories over the last 10+ years since I've been doing this in private practice, I can only remember maybe 2 or 3 times when I came out of a session and I needed some additional tapping because I was still affected by what I was hearing. But again, I tap along with my clients. They get rid of their issues. I hear it. I get rid of the issues myself as well. So it's a beautiful tool to avoid compassion fatigue.